Uh, so welcome everyone. Good evening. My name is Sanjiv Jain. I'm your host today. I'm representing Enabling World, which is a boutique HR consulting firm. But first of all, let me welcome our experts uh, from industry and academic world both, who have taken time out for this interesting discussion today. First of all, let me invite Neil, Mr. Nilakantan, Srinivasan. Hi, Neil. Thanks for joining in.
Hi, Sanjiv. Good evening. And thanks for inviting me.
No worries. So why don't you have a brief introduction about yourself, just a minute, so that the audience know. And what's your passion with the analytics? Why are you here?
Sure. I'll keep it brief in the benefit of the main objective. Yeah. So you can call me Neil for the others. Sanjiv, of course, knows that. For the last 25 years or so, I've been in the industry and worked across various roles, etc. And the last decade or so, I've been working with a variety of organizations, helping them in transformation, and been working with analytics for a while now, and particularly HR analytics, because that's one of the areas where it's difficult to apply analytics for the virtue of the fact that data is not very accessible, etc. So yeah, I like to play with numbers. As Sanjeev pointed out, passion for numbers is something that drew me into analytics. And I hope that I'll continue to learn, because this is a field, every day something new comes up. So there's always something exciting happening. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And Monika, next over to you. And thanks for joining in. I know it's a busy time for you, but thanks for making time out for this.
Thank you so much, Sanjiv. So I'm Monika Marwah, and I come with close to around my 16 years of work into HR. I've tried and experimented a lot in my journey. From a tools and technology perspective, I keep myself updated. You name the tools, maybe started up my journey with backend somewhere around in PeopleSoft, then SAP, then moved to Taleo, then Workday. Maybe Zoho, you name the technologies and the tools which are there into HR, I would have got an opportunity to work for. I also got myself SAFe certified because majority of my exposure was into IT and IT services. So I wanted to make sure how these IT folks manage their work and a bigger projects. Why can't we utilize this kind of technologies and the tools for HR? So that's what it kept me ongoing. And I think while joining this current organization, which is majorly into data analytics and app modernization, I think it's just adding a flavor to my journey that, yes, I see how people really play with numbers, people play with research and everything. So I think just trying to learn more from the people around, and it will continue on my journey to learn on data, technologies, and analysis.
Thank you. But how come you got into writing, co-authoring a book on something topic on which is workplace romance? So
yeah, so I think that came up with the philosophy. I remember, usually into HR, you kind of create a lot of trainings and sessions, and POSH became one of the key critical for one of our modules. And usually the trainings are really boring. And that's where I realized what could be the right way to train our millennials in a manner that they can understand the concept, they can understand what it is all about, and understand the thin lines in between. So I kept it as a fiction-based module where they can just read it. This particular book, anybody can read in 30 minutes, and then they can understand what we're trying to articulate through a long, lengthy training program. So that's the purpose behind creating this book.
Thank you so much. Welcome here. And okay, next, let me go to Ramesh, my friend Ramesh Ranjan. Sir, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good evening, Sanjiv. Thank you for inviting me to this session. I'm basically an HR professional, having worked for 30 years in the corporate world. And the last 7 years, I've been consulting, teaching, and mentoring CEOs and startups. I've been long fascinated with technology, and believe me, I was a personal officer, HRIS, in 1989.
Wow.
Long before even analytics was even known to the outside world. Because of my passion for numbers, for technology, I was made a personal officer for HRIS at ITI Limited, the public sector. So you can imagine a public sector embracing HR analytics way back in 1989. because I firmly believe that HR does a great job, but many a times we're not able to articulate what is it that we do, which really impacts business. And I think this is where HR analytics helps in terms of articulating and showing in a measurable way how we impact business. And that's how my fascination for analytics. And I'm happy to be here. I'm currently also the adjunct professor at IFM School of Business in Bangalore.
Great. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So we'll get some benefit of your wisdom and your rich experience in this area, which is HR analytics doesn't go very well together normally. So you're unique. So we'll learn from you. And
Thank you.
Dr. Monika, thank you very much. Dr. Monika, welcome. So she's perhaps the youngest expert here, but I can say she is a doctorate in HR. Recently, she completed. So congratulations, Divya, for that. And why don't you talk a little more about your fascination on people analytics, and then we'll begin the session.
Okay, so thank you so much, sir, first of all, for inviting me and being a part of this wonderful panel. And I'm really excited about this particular session. And I'm a HR professional by heart, and by profession, I'm a professor. I'm teaching students the HRM, and recently I've completed my PhD in HR strategies. So apart from being a professor, I think one thing that I'm always fascinated about is to, play with the data. And because HR analytics is something that, it's a need of the hour and everybody is working on it. So I was also, feeling like that this is something that I should be doing. I should be exploring the more options, more opportunities where we can actually predict the future with the help of data and come up with some amazing trends, by doing the trend analysis to identify that what is happening next. So that actually, ignite a feeling of me to explore more in the terms of HR analytics. Now, I have actually delivered a number of sessions with Aon on HR analytics, and I'm also a corporate trainer right now where I'm working with different HR professionals where we are working together to, solve the organization's problem using the data and analytics. So I am hoping that I would be able to, share some of my insights and experience here with the students and the professionals who have joined here today, and they can learn something about the HR analytics from me.
Perfect. So I think we are a very rich panel. So I think the time is a little less, but we'll try to go rapid fire and quick so that we can cover more pertinent point. I think we'll cover more on the just as a context. So before I begin, just let me do one duty that I have to introduce my organization to the rest of the organization. So we are Enabling World, as I mentioned. So we are celebrating 10th year with your good wishes and blessing. We are a consulting firm that my partner Sushil is also with us, who actually started. We are into HR consulting, leadership talent development, DAI, and employee well-being is a big focus for us. And we do a bit on outsourcing services as well. So that's a very brief introduction about who we are. But anyway, so let's get deep into the session. So you can stop sharing. There is one quick, we thought when we starting. So this session is about not purely about HR analytics. It's not about future of work alone. It's at the intersection of how people analytics is helping us manage the future of work, right? Because that's a very interesting intersection that we are going to talk about, right? So we'll stay focused on that. But before we do that, it'll be interesting to know from all our audience who are on LinkedIn or as well, you're welcome here. So you can, scan the code and then give an answer on what is your perspective on what's happening as a future of work trend. So if you can share that in a maybe one word or few words on Menti, that'll be great. And we'll pick up thread, our experts, guests, will pick up thread from here and see how people analytics can help us manage the future of work trends, right? Are we okay with that? All right. So you can see the code here and Menti code. So those who are here on Zoom or on LinkedIn, you can log in and then give maybe one word or two words of what do you think is the future of work trend. You can put in the chat as well in case you have difficulty in logging to Menti. You are most welcome to put in the chat. What is your perspective on future of work? What's happening? What are the key trends? And we'll pick up thread from there and examine how people analytics is helping there. Okay. So on the chat, anyone wants to put comments on before we go to our experts? Chatbot, data clarity, hybrid and remote working, automation, Princey. All right. Okay. Hybrid work model from Haha Corporation. That's interesting name. So happiness is inbuilt into the name itself. That's wonderful. Okay, planning, digitize operation, data clarity and tools. Okay, so I think this is a trend which is we are still grappling with. So Vijay, you can stop sharing maybe a few more seconds. Let's see if there are more comments here. Hybrid and remote working certainly is at the forefront. Digitize operations, retention, focus, planning. All right. So Vijay, you can stop sharing. So we'll go deep into this. All right. So I think the future of work, what we thought sometime back, maybe 3 years back, it got accelerated due to the pandemic, right? We all know that what we thought will happen in next 10 years happened very quickly overnight, right? And it was difficult for all of us to grapple with that. And CHROs, HR fraternity in particular, they dealt with it, head on from the front. They were in the front leading the whole initiative, and congratulations to everyone, all of us who really managed it very, very well. So I think let's get into this discussion on some of the trends for future of work. It could be hybrid working or the talent velocity, or could be DI or well-being. There are a lot of priorities which have come up in the future of work that we are dealing with. And let's see how analytics can help in each of these, right? That's what the focus would be. All right. So, so let me start with you, Divya. I heard in this comment that hybrid work is, I think, the most talked about change in the way we work, right? Most talked about. And we are still grappling with remote working and then hybrid working. People are still understanding. And that's not true for all the industries, I think, but maybe 50% of the industry where work can be done remotely, at least hybrid working is the way forward for many of the organizations. So I think your question to you is, how can we, when people are working, employees are working remotely or hybrid, they're not fully visible. Sometimes engaging with employees can become very tough. Sometimes you don't know, you're not visible, they're not visible, you don't know their emotions sometimes. What is your advice? How can analytics in particular help to know the mood of people or the engagement and connectedness and, accurately, because it's not visible? So any views?
Yeah, so I think, sir, this is a very valid question right now. And many of the organizations are actually facing this challenge of, social isolation, what we can call it. So using the analytics, we can solve this entire, engagement and connectedness issue in a very, simple process. So I think first important thing is to, to survey, to collect the data. And that we can do by using, the Pulse surveys, or we can have a random surveys where we are not talking about the work, but we are talking about different aspects of the work, that how people are feeling about their teams, what people are feeling about their job roles, their job connectedness. And there we can actually get the first-hand insight about that, what actually is happening. Okay. And as we go ahead, I think the second thing that we need to use is, the communication tools. So we have a number of tools, like one through which we are connecting right now. There are many others where we can have, a lot of interaction with the people. And if your team is very large, it might not happen that you accommodate the entire cohort at once. It might happen that, you break down into the smaller teams who are working interconnectedly or very closely, and call them to, communicate on these kind of social sites, or maybe the social media, or maybe a simple tool like a Zoom or Gmeet. So once we start interacting, what we can do is, it's not just about having an interaction, but we can actually observe, or we can use the data collection and analysis at that point as well, where we can find that, who is interacting most, who is not connected, who is not responding over the things which others are talking, who is just sitting idle. And that can actually reflect that, what is the level of engagement employees are having. Right?
Okay, so that's interesting. That's interesting, Monika. I'm sure you are leading large organization, and this issue, I can imagine would be very tough, right? How do we know whether they are happy, not happy? And sometimes HR went overboard in terms of engaging with them and Zoom and Antakshi and whatnot. And they said, oh, but guys, we don't need it, right? So we went overboard. So any practical tip from you? How do we actually know the pulse of people using what analytics, to give us a real idea?
See, I personally believe we have gone with that ages that HR is responsible for managing these fun, engaging activities on the ground.
True.
The portfolio which we are now supporting with the data is more about job role enhancement. So till the time we are ensuring that our people are clear what role they are supposed to deliver and how are they scaling up from one level to another level, we are not able to articulate that properly, then our purpose of having an HR and analysis is a failure. So what I personally feel, a job role clarity is the first major pointer, that the people should be 100% sure what they are supposed to deliver. A transparent way that how they are going to scale up from one level to another, where they can clearly predict their growth opportunity within the organization. So those articulations are important. Third and foremost, giving them a visibility of a roadmap or a future way of the organization. At times, our viewpoints are so limited. We kind of give them a quarter view or a biannual view or a year view, rather than talking about what's going to happen in the next 3 years or 5 years or 10 years down the line, whether they're part of this journey. You can't take them along. They're part of your leadership group. Even a single person who is part of this organization, they're part of your leadership group. They are the one because of what your organization is growing. So bringing that level of transparency in their job roles and the goal setting is very, very pivotal. So when I say building an OKR setup, which is organized objectives and key results, so clearly and articulative to that level, makes it much more engaging. They are aware what they're supposed to do and how we can check on the pulse. I always used to laugh when you come to office and people are like very serious and focused in their laptops and you can't really hear any noise. That means there is something is going fishy. So better people should be laughing, discussing, maybe arguing with each other. That makes it more momentum, which is there on the floor. That's one piece. Second is, at times while you're setting up certain training sessions or maybe a town hall or maybe something, and if you have to force people to come with their reporting managers and reminders all together, that means they are not engaged. They are not focusing on the agenda, what you're trying to achieve. If a one email and you can get everybody available, that means your message is delivered. So I think those gap areas are now beyond, making it a clear, I think like Dr. Divya clearly called out, clear communication plays a very pivotal role. I think during COVID, we have learned it hard way that you have to have momentums where you're building the right communication. Don't over communicate. Make it clear, precise, and to the point which they can understand to the core and they become part of this.
So Monika, what you mentioned is, basically the way we can engage, but, in terms of analytics, you're saying, this may not be a direct surveys, of course, can be done, but one should not, ignore the indirect ways that you can measure, right? Their engagement, participation in various activities, and you can make out, right, whether they're engaged or not, then that also gives a message. Absolutely. Ramesh, coming to you, I wanted to ask you, because I heard when remote working was happening, there was a lack of trust. Oh, we don't know. They will be just, enjoying and doing something. I don't know whether they're working, not working, because used to people, before us working and we are micromanaging in a way, right? They were there in front of you, but when they were remote, a lot of managers were not trained how to deal with remote workforce, right? And there came the need for surveillance and, you are a technology geek, Monika, and, Neil, you also. But generally, people started using some tools to surveillance how many clicks on the laptop they made, how much they were away from that, right? Now, why this is happening to measure the productivity or the performance of employees? That's the whole intent, isn't it? So Ramesh, coming to you, first of all, any guidance to us in terms of the surveillance analytics on people productivity? This is good or bad? If to be done, how to be done? And follow-up question would be, how can we actually do an outcome-based, measurement of employees' productivity, right, as analytics to help manage this? Little complex question, but I mean,
yeah. So before that, just borrowing from the previous question, I think we must understand what engagement is all about before we talk about remote monitoring. If you see engagement, there are three dimensions to engagement. One of it is the connectivity. How connected are the employees with the organization? The second one is about the productivity, right? Working remotely, how productive these employees are. And the third one is a sense of belongingness, or what I call bonding. Though these people are remotely out there, are they bonded with the organization? So from an HR analytics perspective, if we can measure these three dimensions, right? Can we measure connectivity? When we say connectivity, it's about the periodic communication. When you organize meetings, are they there for those meetings? Are they attending the town hall meetings? Their screen presence, their active participation. All these are measurable, right? And then when you're talking about productivity, obviously it's about meeting their KPIs, their OKRs, and the other objectives which the organization set. Are they being productive as well as in office? And I'm talking about belongingness or bonding. It's about absenteeism, it's about attendance, it's about employee net promoter score, it's about engagement. So these are the parameters in which, if we start measuring, it gives you an idea about how engaged the employees are remotely, right? So then the context of what you talked about, surveillance, right? Of course, today there are remote management softwares, as you rightly said, which tracks your keystrokes, it tracks your software and applications that are being used, how much of screen presence you have, how much of eye contact you have on the thing. Now, I think there's an ethical issue to that. There is a legal issue to that. In many countries, it's not legal to remotely do surveillance without the consent of the employees. And ethically also, there's an issue with that. But having said that, can we do away with it? Whether we like it or not, most of the organizations are doing it today in some form or the other, right? To the extent that people have reconciled to the fact that we got to live with it. Now, is there an alternative solution? I told you, if you're able to measure those three dimensions in terms of connectivity, in terms of productivity, in terms of bonding, then there will not be any requirement for me to do any remote surveillance or remote monitoring.
And I hope we really go there fast, because that's a trust-based organization, and
absolutely,
and that's the right thing to do eventually, right? Because it can't be scaled, right? You can't do up to a point, not beyond a point, right? All right. So, Neil, any comment you had on this point before we
Sure.
go?
Yeah, I think, just to add to what Mr. Ramesh said, I think excessive monitoring, or constant surveillance is surely going to be counterproductive. And we are here talking about not blue-collar labor. We are talking about white-collar labor. We're also talking about millennials and the Gen Z and all that stuff. So, their perspective about, even as parents, we know, what surveillance and, monitoring that we do at home and how ineffective it is. And I think we should extend that to the office environment as well. So I think the shift needs to happen at the leadership level to start focusing on ownership. Right. So from monitoring, I think we should see how we should allow the employees to take ownership. Once the accountability or ownership of the employee comes in for the business deliverable, right? What that employee is supposed to be delivering for the business, we should allow some leeway or freedom for him to do what he or she to do what they wish to do and how they wish to do. And that's exactly what the current generation would be expecting. So I think tracking and measuring would be needed or co-tracking, I would say, not just tracking in the sense, surveillance usually comes with the word means that, someone is monitoring you without you being aware of it, or you're aware, but you don't have access to that information. But I think what we need to look forward towards is a mechanism through which, a co-monitoring is happening. That is, the employee knows that he's accountable for these areas and that's being monitored, for example, productivity, quality, on all those aspects. And then he's also checking, or he's himself monitoring how he's performing on those. How many hours did he clock in today? How many breaks did he take today, he or she, when I'm saying that, right? And stuff like that. So self-governance, which is transparent to the management and also to that employee. And I think unified communication platforms are available today. And before we move on, I just wanted to add one more point, that we have now, as you mentioned, quickly shifted from how we worked, pre 2020 to current scenario of hybrid working. I think the change happened very fast. It's good one way. We moved to a new normal, but it's also that we didn't give enough time or thought to how that new setup will function or how it will stabilize. So
where was the time people had to grapple to get into the new mode, and then gradually this becoming a way of life, right? So it was a very quick reaction. So thanks for your comment, Neil.
Sure.
Monika, just wanted to ask you one particular aspect of hybrid working. And we do work with a lot of organizations and we meet a lot of friends. One of the challenge of hybrid working, completely remote was still easier to manage because everyone is in remote, it is easy. But hybrid had its own unique challenges, right? You come 2 days, but which 2 days you decide, but when you come, you don't find anyone, you don't find any purpose of coming to the organization, right? I'm talking to this practical issue. I'm sure you must be dealing with that, you would have dealt with. So I want to ask you, how can analytics, our focus today is not purely hybrid working, right? But how can analytics help? And in terms of even as simple as rostering, right? Make it effective rostering so that employee who comes has a purpose of coming to office, right? And so any views how analytics can help here?
To be honest, each one of us are definitely trying to find that one right solution which works for all, which is not available at this point of time for sure. We've tried multiple tools, check-ins, check-outs. We've tried location tracking, that yes, where you are and so on and so forth, so that manager can apply. But I think roster module and making it clear. So I'll give you an example. Like, I make it a point that I come to office 3 days a week and 2 days is virtual. And the day I started that particular plan, I made it a point that I communicated to the entire stakeholders who are going to be working with me and my team well in advance, so that I can plan my meetings accordingly. That these are the 2 days when I'm virtual. These are the 3 days when I'm working from office. All in-person connects have to happen at that point of time. And that's how my team also aligned to it. Similarly, it's very, very pivotal that hybrid work model can only work if a managers take that ownership. If they plan it up clearly when the team is coming, even for a single day, if it is a single day overlap amongst the team members and they're all coming together, that's the purpose which we're trying to achieve. So we need to identify why this concept of hybrid. And if we want people to come to office, what is the purpose we are trying to achieve? It is only that we should meet in person. That's one piece. Or is it important that people come and share with each other, or it is more to do with the stakeholder management? Like, take an example, there are certain roles which needs to be in person. You cannot really have a long lasting hybrid or a remote working for that. So manager, I say from an analytics perspective, what we do is capturing in advance, what's the plan of action for the next 1 month, how people are coming, which all days they're coming, and there is an overlap within the team. So a team sync is important. And manager sync is also very important, whether they are able to articulate what is the purpose they are trying to achieve to the people, that why should they come to office and why should they work from home. So if tomorrow my team member come back and say, I did not get this help because people were not available, those are predictive things which I should be able to focus and say, okay, these are the 1 or 2 days when we will be meeting in person to solve for all these pendencies. So create and articulate your actions in a manner that when we meet up, we are going to close. So roster, planning, and then clear communication. I think that's a combination which we need to drive.
Combination. And do you use any analytics tool to do this, or it is?
So that's where it came into existence. We have tools where we were trying to identify. So most of the time when we were coming just like that, and filling it up from a tool perspective, people were entering any point of time that I'm going to be working in hybrid or in a remote and an office work perspective. But the problem which got resolved is when we intervened managers to come and oversee that. When we were thinking from an organization perspective, we were like, okay, it's fine, 60% hybrid, 40%, 60% remote, 40% in office, it's working fine. But when we went back to the department or a team-wise view, we realized that the team itself has a struggle. If they come in a 60-40 ratios, they're not able to meet each other. So we gave that flexibility that yes, teams will take a decision whether on which days they are going to come to office and which days they're going to work. So it has to be a manager view that it's my team, my department, I plan it up how many days, and that's how the team has to get aligned. And that's only it works out.
All right. So one of the things that I was reading, Monica, thanks for sharing this, is, there are a lot of analytics nowadays available, just like organizational network analysis, where because organization doesn't work the way the organizational structure is. It doesn't work like that.
Correct.
It works, you work with the HR will work with the finance team, or the
Multiple stakeholders,
delivery team will work with the IT team, right, etc., etc. So this organizational network analysis can also tell who is interacting with whom more. That can, all this analytics can help you organize who should come together, right? Because if you don't plan it well, only department alone also may not help, because you work cross department, right? So that's very interesting. Deep analytics is helping nowadays. There are a lot of case studies where they're helping in terms of the way even rostering, as simple as rostering should happen to make it habit model effective, right?
So in IT organizations, Sanjiv, just to add on, we have stand-ups as a model. Okay, so we get a data that which all teams needs to work out, and we kind of have a 15-minute stand-up every day. Now we do it in a hybrid model, like virtual and in person, or we actually come to office and summarize the entire view. So all the stakeholders from a different departments come together, brainstorm what they're going to figure it out and what are the challenges they are facing, and take an action to it.
Right.
So those small bits and things are really helping us out to articulate that, yeah, even with a virtual or a hybrid, it's work in progress, and multiple stakeholders are coming together in one particular thing. So that's how it's helping us.
All right.
Sanjiv, what I also feel is that we should look at breaking down your activities into two dimensions. One is this activity an individual contributor's role, or is it a teamwork role? For those activities which is just an individual contributor's role, probably you can work from home. But those activities require teamwork, you'll have to come to office. So a simple way of tracking these activities and then classifying them as teamwork or individual contributor can help you.
Like another example is best done, brainstorming, project kickoff. These are best done when you are together, right? It makes
exactly. It's a teamwork.
If you have to think and write a case study, you can do at home, right? So
you have to do some reporting or dashboards, you can sit and work from home. So you asked about a tool. I know a friend of mine in a startup, they're using Calendly, the calendar management software or the tool to help understand. And they have some color codes classifying this. If it requires teamwork, they put in a certain color and put it on the calendar. So when you go and try and look for an appointment, you know that this guy is coming to office or not coming to office. And if it matches, you can then fix an appointment and you can ensure that he's physically available in office.
Absolutely. That's a great point.
Sanjiv, if you're okay, can I just take a minute to share a use case?
Please jump in. Absolutely.
Yeah. So one of my friends, contacts, he used to develop some software for this employee transportation. How do you optimize the transportation of employees to office and work, when the employer is paying for the transportation. So when COVID hit, his business got hit. So he pivoted and he developed during that time some application which is meant to do exactly what we are talking about. So it takes care of transportation of employees, synchronizing the calendars, ensuring that the employee is allocated a seat when he comes and he doesn't scramble to find a place. The cafeteria is not overcrowded, such that everyone lands up on a Wednesday and Wednesday is just packed. Because the organizations are also now shrinking their footprint, their footprint in terms of how much space they occupy. So I heard from him that Kotak has implemented this in their operations team, and they have done that for the last 2 years. They've also been able to surrender a few floors and manage this whole thing. So maybe if those of you who are interested can reach out to your contacts in Kotak, etc., to understand exactly how that's working for them.
So even simple thing which we took for granted, right? People have a space, they can come and go, right? They have fixed bus routes, etc. Today it's become so complex in hybrid working. You need a lot of information and analytics and make sense of that to make it easy. And ultimately the employee should go through that experience that when they come to work, there should be purpose. They should go fulfilled, right? They should not come to office and then stay alone in one corner without talking to anyone and go back. That defeats the whole purpose, right? So I'm sure a lot can happen on that. All right.
So one thing I think sorry to close. I think this has gone to a longer discussion, but I wanted to call out one thing. With my experience, we tested out that if we kind of work out with an individual contributor or a team management kind of a role portfolio, I went and did this particular changes and did some surveys and realized those people who are an individual contributor, they were not coming to offices, and the employee engagement surveys were lower from their end because they were kind of siloed from the entire experience perspective. So I would say we need to call it out the purpose. Why do we want people to come to office, and why do we want people to work from home? It should not be just a cost saving as one of the initiative. When an organization feel that yes, we should have a collaborative environment, so people should definitely come to office and let go that benefit of working from home. Or if it is managed in such a manner that we have online tools where people are available on videos, we have engaging sessions where managers are articulating the role expectation clearly, then even your working from home hardly matters. So I personally feel you build on a lot of analytics and AI, but you need to have human connect, which is a very pivotal role in every scenario and tools which we use. Over to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so I think, so let's move on. I think, so hybrids, it's a complex subject and we are very passionate. So thanks for everyone to jump in and, helping to get an idea of how analytics can help this complex issue. So thanks, Sam. I think let's move on. Another issue which came up in recent times and the future of work is the importance to mental well-being, I personally feel. And I think this is one thing which has always been there, but somewhere, very low in the priorities, on CHRO's priority. But I think last 2-3 years, there was a need. It came up very high as a top priority in the organization for CEOs and for CHROs and for everyone. And it is going to stay there. That's a good trend, right? But coming to specifically on analytics, how can maybe analytics can help, especially knowing, because, we used to measure employee well-being index, right? Employee pulse survey, we all know, right? But if it comes to my specific question is, how do we know as an organization, where is the well-being status of my employees of the organization? Is there a way to measure that, right? Individually is a little difficult also and sensitive also because there are privacy issues. But how can anyone want to comment on that? Ranjan, if you want to comment on that, how can we measure the well-being of the organization and the employees in general? Very quick answer because I have 2-3 more important things to cover. So very quickly, if you can comment on.
See, some simple metrics are there, like, measuring your absenteeism from work due to illness, right? Or any health-related issues. It can also be about, the medical insurance claims that people are making. Is my medical insurance bill going up every year?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That gives you an indication about the sickness in the employee or the family. It's also about the metrics in terms of how many people are taking leave. Are they using up their leaves? Are they giving up their leaves? No? Some of these indicators gives you an idea about the well-being of employees. Some of these metrics which can use is your work-life balance in terms of medical health insurance programs, the leave availments, number of sick leaves that people take, absenteeism from the workplace, safety incidents, if it's a blue collar or a manufacturing organization. These are some of the indicators it tells you about the health and well-being in the organization.
I've also heard there are now, different apps where, you ask employees to survey an employee survey, the employee well-being is another question that anyone has. One of the experts want to comment on that. Have you tried that? Have you heard somewhere where, you can do it?
Before that, Sanjiv, just to give you, many organizations are encouraging your wearables in terms of smart watches, health fitness trackers. And then they're also giving you some incentives that if your BMI is less than a certain level, and if you've got a healthy BMI, you get a special benefit. And if you have not claimed your medical insurance, you get certain benefit. So they give some incentives for some healthy parameters also, and monitoring it through your health tracking apps and other things.
Correct.
Yeah, so can I add something to this?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so I think 2 things which I am observing right now, which is happening across the organization. One is that now organizations are not only calculating the happiness index of the employee, but they are also calculating the well-being index by finding out, as the sir was saying, that we have different metrics and we can use different metrics which include the absenteeism, but also about the change in the productivity, change in the interaction level, which I believe that analytics can track very easily. And the second thing which organizations are working here is about the gamification. So, organizations are actually tracking the physical activity of the employees in terms of different applications which, help them to perform the physical activities in form of a game, and the access of that data is always available to the manager, so that managers can actually track that, how employees are involved, what is their pulse rate, what physical activities they are doing, and all these things. So I think well-being index and gamification are two things which is very important and which is very much related to analytics.
Another thing is, most of the companies have EAP services today that I heard, because you can't know, it's a private data and it should be. How many people have approached for depression? I mean, see, physical, wellness, you can still measure, right? BMI index, etc. But sometimes the mental well-being, how many people are reaching out for what kind of issues? EAP service can also give you one consolidated, dashboard on what's happening. So that could be another way. Anthony, you had some point quickly. You want to unmute and you're welcome to share your comment.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had 2 points which I wanted to just discuss in the forum and also have a healthy conversation over it. So the first one is especially on the mental well-being, which you're talking about. I think it's a very, very strong point and fabulous point which you placed in the forum. And it needs a special attention, especially from the HR community of every company, because that's going to be one of the challenge which we are going to face as corporates in the coming days. And it's going to be a very big challenge as well, which we are evidencing day to day. There are people who are being, who have, the imbalance on the mental well-being. So I think there we need a special care, and the HRs needs to be very much cautious in terms of monitoring and also in terms of reporting to the management if any of the employees are not being mentally well. And the second point is on the attrition, which I wanted to discuss. So attrition today, again, it's being a very, very big challenge, but it's posing as a very big threat, but we are not able to handle as corporates because we are not sure that which employee is going to resign tomorrow. Right. So, that kind of scenario is being driven because of the insecurity which they face and also because of the challenges which they get from day to day, of the targets, etc. So I think this is one more segment wherein, the analytics and reporting and, the complete strength of giving, the reporting and the process of, reporting how many folks are going to resign or, might get into attrition. So that kind of a report on a month-on-month basis, probably, if feasible, I think that should be very much helpful to identify if any of the employees are going to, resign or, in controlling that attrition scale. I think these are the two segments which, which need special focus, according to me, might be, I just want the...
I think thanks, Anthony, for jumping in and sharing your concern and your comments also. Attrition, of course, is one area when you talk about HR analytics, and attrition is this significant part of it, right? And it has changed hugely. I mean, I have seen personally the change in terms of predictive analytics, right? And it's all technology and science which comes into play. I think let's talk about attrition as one of the point, right? Any comment that, Neil, if you want to make, how can we, and others can also jump in, because, the last 2-3 years, one of the trends that we have seen is great resignation, right?
Yeah.
Then the trend of quiet quitting, right? People are not leaving, but they are mentally gone, right? They mentally resigned from the organization. They're not contributing. Then came the trend of quiet hiring. I don't know if you heard, because that was the organization's response to quiet quitting, that, okay, I'm going to reskill you. I'm going to use you for some other roles. You're hiring within the organization quietly without anyone's knowing, not with a ulterior motive, but I think that's a plan, because you need to keep moving people, give them new roles within the organization, right? Now, attrition, how can we, any interesting trends on analyzing attrition, predictive analytics in particular? Neil, you are an expert on this, like to comment on?
Sure, sure. So I think the topic is very pertinent, and if you see HR analytics itself, most of the work or use cases and what generally people showcase as their cream of cream is generally been the attrition prediction, and people somehow love the word prediction. We all want to predict something before it happens, right? But if you look at a lot of prediction models, almost all prediction models, they work based on the historic data. And so we can predict, or we can talk about the propensities, and they will have certain level of certainty, and we're not never going to get it 100% right. So what I've experienced based on building few prediction models for some of my clients, etc., is that generally when we try to build a global model, that is, we try to take the global employee database and develop a model which is going to cater to all levels of employees across all geographies, right? Then such a model is very complex, has many parameters in it, and we don't know when we are using neural network, deep learning, etc. We're not able to know, though the model is very accurate, has very good F1 scores and all that stuff, but it's a black box. You don't know what factor actually has been picked up by the model, how much weightage the model is giving for those factors. Instead, if we develop local models, that is models which are very specifically for a particular location and for maybe a set of levels or a set of function and stuff like that, right? So when we build such models, multiple models like that, especially in areas where we have a lot of attrition or where we want to grow, but attrition is hampering our growth, such models are quicker to develop, more accurate, and we are also able to find out what factors. I think from an HR perspective, it's not important about creating a model. That's a technology company's job, right? But for an HR, it's more about knowing what I should do to prevent this attrition from happening, and what levers are driving my attrition, what is causing this attrition. So when we develop simple models, regression, logistic regression, based, so we'll know what factors have weights and how much is the weight, and then we can play around, we can start taking actions to fix them. So that's one bit. Before I move on, just one more point, maybe for 30 seconds, I want to add. I think the whole attrition prediction has been generally working on trying to find out models or patterns which is there in the data to say that, oh, employee of this tenure, employee of this kind of education background, employee of this department that writes, etc., right? That's going to keep happening. We cannot prevent it, right? In spite of knowing that it's going to rain, it will rain. So employees will certainly attrite from various departments. This month it may be this department, next quarter it may be another department, and it keeps on moving like that depending on where the supply demand gaps exist. I think what the HR needs to ask a question is, why is the employee going out there for shopping? Why is he shopping for jobs? What is driving him or her to first update their resume? What is driving them to even pick up their old resume, dust it, and start reviewing it, right? So that is the lever. And I think our focus should be on mainly identifying those levers using our prediction model that can then subsequently help us to prevent attrition rather than just predict it.
So, any Monika?
I'll add, yeah. So I think Neil really quoted up, it's a good combination platform which we need to build on. So like, take an example, when a person, so my worry is not a normal attrition. So people with 2-3 years of experience, if they leave fair, they came, they got trained, they delivered, and they want to pursue their career, their expectations are not getting met, I'm perfectly okay with them going. My worry is more about rookie attrition, people who leave within a year. We have spent a lot of money in hiring these people. We've spent a lot of money in training and grooming them, and they have not even delivered, and they went out, right? My entire employer brand got screwed up with these numbers coming into the picture. So I'll tell you how are we trying to fix up and create a multiple model place where we are getting these data points. One, a person who comes on board, rather than waiting for a probation period to get over, we kind of try and get their candidate experience as well as the hiring manager experience. Try to build that sync, whether it is aligned or they're talking into different engines. The moment the person gets confirmed, after that, there has to be, after 6 months, there's a mid-year review kind of that. And that mid-year review should be a forward-looking approach, should not be only analyzing what did not went well, should be a next 6 months plan of action with them. Sync that you are articulating and clearly covering it up. Taking a feedback after 3 months with that individual, how are they aligned with the forward-looking approach? All right. So these are the multiple checks and balances which you do. The most important thing, which I believe from an attrition perspective, the moment what we do is, the moment you have a rating mechanism or any appraisal cycles, you have a different rating modules, you have a top talent with you, right? Those top talents are the critical talent for you. Along with that, you have a regular cadence as an HR where we are tracking it across, whether it is a flight risk for a manager or not. And it is a critical hire as well. So making that combination, okay, it is a critical hire as well, it is a flight risk as well. Rather than waiting for an exit interview to happen, we should focus on stay interviews. It should be well before by HR. So I kind of create my own repository on a yearly basis. These are the number of people every month I have to meet in person. I have to understand what are the progressive plans are, any challenge they are facing on the ground. That's what I always say. There is a good data which we get it from somewhere. You need to blend it with a good human connect and a people focus. It will always give you success. I have been able to predict in advance that these are my future high attrition. Can we modify and change the profiles? Can we modify the role for them? Can we figure out something additional to that? And that's where we were able to safeguard that as well. So I always focus, leave a worry about attrition and a exit, focus on stay interviews as a long lasting stability in a HR fraternity.
And you get good analytics around when you do stay interviews, you get the data out of it that Correct. You analyze and then interpret.
And it's all captured very well, so that we can sync up what is the next step, what is the follow-up, is there any mentorship required, is there any training program required. So there is a funnel which goes out for a L&D team, there's a funnel which goes out to the reporting manager. It needs a little efforts, I'm sure, but there is a system which gives you data, but then we also feed in a data to that.
Absolutely. I remember in IBM we used to have that time predictive analytics. They had the power, right?
Correct.
And based on that, company used to give certain base uplift program was running, and the ROI was 200-300% of the investment, right? Because we know these people are likely to leave. I mean, and then if you do this investment, they're likely to stay. I mean, what you're saying is absolutely important, but analytics can go very deep in terms of predicting, and there could be interventions where you could benefit the audience. There's a comment, there's a question from someone who registered. I don't know the name here, but the interesting question is tools of analytics which can give HR real-time insight tools, which are AI-based and can run sentiment analysis. What is the purview of the panelist on their effectiveness? I've seen organizations bring it with great enthusiasm, but then it becomes a burden, the sentiment analysis, right? So anyone wants to quickly comment on that? There was a question from someone who registered.
So I can maybe pitch in, Sanjiv.
Just a quick one, Neil, because
we're running short of time. Yeah. See, I think this sentiment analysis tools are available everywhere, starting from Power BI to every other HR tech platform has today the capability to flash your sentiment analysis. I think why it's failing, as you rightly pointed out with some organizations, is that we need to be prepared from HR perspective as to the kind of work that's going to flow in on our plate. Each employee, when he comments, etc., they expect some kind of an action be taken on it, right? So you need an army of HR folks to act on it, some mechanism, some command center. So you need to replicate the model that you have for customer complaints. How do customer complaints go to a command center? They get acted on within SLA, something like that. At least a little lesser SLA we need to have.
All right. So let's also talk about how do we go there? Because if it is that important for us to know, to be good at HR analytics, to deal with the future of work, because it's very hazy today, we don't know. And only good data and good insights can help us manage it better. But how are we today? Ramesh, what's your view on our current capability, what you see with HR people? I mean, I have mixed views, honestly, about it. When I go and talk to people, sometimes they put the dashboard without any insight, without any actionable insight, right? But what's your personal view of where are we in terms of our capability? And any quick tips that I would request everyone to give on how can we improve our, data mindset, analytic capability, if not all, some experts within the team who can really help the function and the organization. A quick point from you.
Yeah, as you said, Sanjiv, I believe or I feel that HR is tech shy rather than tech friendly. The large number of people in the HR fraternity, whether the seniors or the mid managers or the juniors, we are still tech shy. We are not fully digitally savvy, right? That is one reality which I think we need to understand, and we need to get upskilled ourselves in terms of the latest digital technologies. And second thing is, I think what we sometimes fail to see is that we look at analytics more in terms of dashboards, as you said, in terms of reports, in terms of matrices. But what I feel is where we fail is that we are not able to convert it into a very powerful storytelling. There is a story that needs to be said and not just sharing some matrices or data. And that is where I think many of us are lacking the art of storytelling. I think HR is more to be looked at from a marketing, from a sales perspective, rather than purely from presenting a dashboard in terms of various HR matrices. So storytelling is very, and secondly, I think consulting. We should use matrices and analytics in terms of helping to help the business, which also means that where we lack is our business acumen. Are we financially literate? Are we business acumen do we have? These are some of the observations that I have that we find lacking in some of us.
So Dr. Divya, any quick tip from you? You are training a lot of corporates on HR analytics. What's your one quick advice? How can we upskill ourselves to be able to do justice with this important function?
Okay, so I think, many of the organizations are actually providing a lot of training to the employees. But one quick tip, which I can give is that, allow people to do a lot of experiment with tools, experiment with data, and leave them with the data and the tools itself so that they can figure out that what we can, more do about the data and what we can more, find, what more insights we can find with the help of that data. So experimentation will allow them to explore. It will give them a confidence, and then they will, start finding it interesting. So I think that's where we can work upon. And of course, upskilling requires a lot of training as well. So, but training should be, connected with the organization strategy. People should be very much aware that why it is important. What is the purpose of, introducing tools, technology, and data into the system? That's where we need to work upon.
All right. So I need to make one quick announcement, Vijaya, if you can share the screen. So I think just a quick one. We, as an enabling world, we do offer certain programs on HR business partner journey itself, on HR consulting. So in case anyone is interested, you're welcome to reach out to us. So that's a very quick announcement we wanted to make. One question, Monika, from you is the data privacy laws, right? They're very, very stringent, right? While we deal with this fire, right? We are dealing with it, but sometimes your advice on where should we cautious on, and especially everything being digital today, we have access to much more information about health, which sometimes people may not know what to deal with, how to deal with it, what to store, how to store, where to share, not to share, right? Your advice on this, please.
I'll say prioritize your work, prioritize what is required and critical. Don't go overboard, and do not pick up a lot of things which you can't really implement and absorb. So that's my simple philosophy to everybody from an HR perspective. We don't overdo a lot of surveys and actions to the people. We capture a lot of information, but that's being utilized by third parties. So we need to have a proper non-disclosure agreements, make sure that our data is also not getting leaked out in the market, and our people really get impacted. Plus our employees are our critical piece, their informations are critical, and they should also not be utilizing this content out. So that's a good combination, having a non-disclosure agreements with our partners and the vendors, making sure our data breach security, privacies, and everything is measured very clearly in our IT security measures. And I think that's something which most of the IT organizations are doing, IT telecom. I'm not much aware about rest of the industries. I would recommend that this is a very pivotal role, and every organization should follow that.
All right. So I think, thank you with that. I'm conscious of the time that we have. We are at 6 India time. There'll be a quick poll to all of you. I would request everyone can give your views on how did you find it interesting, valuable, from your point of view. So give your candid feedback, that will help us. And let me thank everyone, Ramesh, you, Neil, Monika, and Dr. Divya, for bringing very practical insights about very complex subject. And it's not easy. We might have touched just the surface of the real issues that are there, but I'm sure all of us would have taken some takeaways of one simple thing that we can adopt in our function, in our roles, respective roles in HR, as we deal with future of work. So we'll stay tuned, stay connected, and maybe we'll talk again after some time. But thank you, everyone. Stay safe and happy analyzing your workforce analytics and taking right decisions for the organization. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Sanjiv.
Thank you so much for
Thank you,
amazing
everyone.
audience. I think very well overwhelming questions. So thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
that.
Bye-bye.
Sanjiv and enabling team and the other panel
Yeah.
members.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Sanjiv.
everyone. Thank you, Sanjeev sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.